Welcome back to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name is Ben and I'm an alcoholic. And in this episode, we'll be continuing on in the doctor's opinion. This is part 3. And again, joining us is my friend Jim B. from Tulsa. And so we will be picking up on page XXVII, which is Roman numeral for 27. It says that we doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside of our synthetic knowledge. Jim, you want to unpack what they're saying there?
Well, think about this. This is written back in the 30s. And knowing that they were just now beginning, Dr. Silkworth was kind of like the pioneer of, sharing what he thought was a, quote, opinion. Mm-hmm. But said when he had treated, over 40,000 alcoholics, with this theory that the body and the mind of an alcoholic is different from the average drinker. And remember, this is written back in the 30s, and it kind of tickles me when it says that our ultra-modern standards.
Yeah.
Well, ultra-modern for back then.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Our scientific approach to everything, and we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good and to lie outside the synthetic knowledge. Mm-hmm. It hurts my heart. I retired from the medical community. And it hurt my heart to be at a desk charting and hearing a social worker and a nurse talking about a patient. And all of a sudden I'd hear them say, hell, there's an alcoholic. Not a clue about the physical allergy to alcohol, mm-hmm. the mental obsession. Same thing with the doctors, even in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
In 2022, ask any med student at OU Med Center, how much training do you get on alcoholism? And it's almost minimal.
Yeah.
They might talk about the Jelinek syndrome, mm-hmm. or whatever. And then they go to become med students or interns, and they see the actual person off the street with a 0.4 alcohol level in the emergency room, and that to them is alcoholism. Yeah. They have no clue. That's why it's so important to have service structure committees like cooperation with the professional community, where Alcoholics Anonymous can actually go in there and talk to med students, yeah. About AA and actually talk to them about the doctor's opinion.
And they call that HNI, if I'm not mistaken,
correct,
right?
yes.
Which stands for hospitals and institutions.
Correct, and there's also there's a service position called the cooperation with the professional community. Mm-hmm. And so that way we get to go talk to the doctors and pastors and whoever. So.
Right, which is a beautiful, profound, and powerful way to use public health to help raise awareness of alcoholism. And to me, whenever he says powers of good, I have written down here what it means to me when he says powers of good. I think he means powers of God.
Of course.
But the thing to me is that in the scientific community, if something is immeasurable, it's not scientific. And how do you measure God?
Exactly.
It's really difficult to quantify anything godly. And so therefore, it's just not something that you can write about scientifically in those days, at least. Now today, and even then, you had Einstein talking about God without science or science without God, and all these different things. And so it's not a new concept, but he's trying to be as objectionable as possible in this. And
exactly.
It's a beautiful thing. So, and it says, many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital. And while here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once.
As we know, that's Bill Wilson.
Yeah.
So our co-founder.
when they say practical application at once, I mean, to me, that means at once. It doesn't mean I have written here, not after 90 meetings in 90 days.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that after a year I can have a plant, and after 2 years I can have a pet, and after 3 years I can call a girl.
Exactly.
Like what, and I'm not, maybe that stuff is helpful to you, but it was not helpful to me. To me, I was dying when I came in here of an acute, progressive, and
Illness.
fatal disease. It was
Exactly.
killing me, and I had to get after it. And so, I'm not one of those people that when I'm taking people through the book, I say, oh, well, he's not ready for this step. He's not ready for that. I don't think that I'm to be the arbiter
No.
or judge
No.
of where somebody should or shouldn't be in the program. My job is to help them put this into practical application at once.
And see, why I have such a passion about this portion of the book. I got sober, and I would go to quote, unquote, beginner meetings. And the person who was chairing the meeting might be as sober as I was. And the format would be, let's start and hear and read a paragraph, and everybody go around and everybody read a paragraph and share. Well, everybody and there was new, would read a paragraph, would not have any clue about what we were reading, and before the meeting was over with, somebody would be talking about their mama, their dog, or whatever, and that to me was Alcoholics Anonymous. Until I was told, I was about 2 months sober, to go to a group that time met in West Tulsa, called the West Side Group, and go to their beginner meeting. And I did. And it was like a classroom setting, about 20 people in there, 2 guys up front, sitting at a table, and they said, turn your book to Roman numeral 11. I'd read this, I'd got this book, and I'd read some of the stories in it, and okay, cool. Well, but I hadn't read any of those Roman numerals. Well, in the preface, it tells me what the book is. Okay. A textbook, something to be studied.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask any teacher, they know the difference between a person who reads a book and a person who studies a book. Yeah. And so the point is that, I started using it as a textbook. And then they said to turn to page Roman numeral 25, which is the doctor's opinion. And that night, 2 guys, a little black guy named George and a businessman named Willis, they spoon-fed me this doctor's opinion. And I got to leave there that night knowing for the first time in 2 months of sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous, my problem. The physical allergy to alcohol coupled with a mental obsession and a spiritual solution.
Sure.
I'd not heard that before.
Yeah.
And the point is, and they emphasized at least 4 or 5 times that night in that 1 hour session that I was not a bad person trying to get good. I was a sick person trying to get well.
Sure.
And it freed me again from all that shame and guilt. I'm going, hallelujah. Wow. This is why, if a person does not know the problem, how can they know the solution?
Absolutely. That's spot on.
Yeah. So this is why this is so important to me.
Yeah, and I just want to, I think that's beautiful, first off, but I also want to say, that doesn't mean that that this is better, that the book is better than that way, or that this is the only way. I'm not saying that, start your second step on your second year, or whatever it was you've heard is the wrong way. It's simply the way that's worked for me. It sounds like it's the way that worked for Jim, and it's simply, we're just going through the big book here. So
Exactly.
we're just trying to help you understand that and what was effective then and what seems to be the most effective today. So moving on, it says, later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here. With some misgiving, we consented. The cases we've followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men as we've come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, their community spirit, is indeed inspiring to one who's labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves, and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death.
Wow. And to know that, I mean, now figure, Dr. Silkworth had treated thousands of alcoholics, and now seeing a possible solution.
Yeah.
He was relieved. He was just so relieved to know this. But the most important thing is what you just read. And still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics from the gates of death. Because each one of them began to believe in a power greater than themselves.
Yeah.
And Dr. Silkworth got to see this firsthand, not only in Bill Wilson. When Bill went to him and said, "I think I'm, maybe I'm crazy," but Dr. Silkworth says, "I don't know what happened to you, but stay with it.
Yeah.
Stay with it."
Yeah.
And Dr. Silkworth would admit he was not that spiritual.
Yeah.
But he said, "Whatever is working, man, stay with it."
And then to those of you who are doing this in order, Bill's opinion is what he's referring to, and that will be released as a podcast and will be read after the doctor's opinion. So, yeah, thanks for that, Jim. And also it's the first time when I recall seeing chronic alcoholics, and so we're starting to specify a little bit more, compared to the acute alcoholism or whatever, which is not totally important right here, but at least that's the first time that's mentioned. And also, it talks about death for the first time here. And we'll see quite a bit more of that in the coming future in other chapters. And so that will conclude part 3 of Doctor's Opinion. So we'll pick right back up in part 4 where we left off. So thank you for coming today. God bless you, and that's it.